A very warm welcome to the second in our series of mental health workouts brought to you by our Viscon team. My name is Susie and I'm delighted to be facilitating this session for you today. Thank you to all our partners, GSK, ANO, Northern Trust, for helping us put on this webinar for you. So this session has been overwhelmingly popular and we are so grateful to you all for joining us. So we know that many of you are phoning in today as well. But please don't worry if you miss anything or you have any problems, because this session is being recorded and you will receive a copy of the webinar as you experienced it today via email within the next 24 hours. So we're all really busy, as we know, so Harriet is going to keep her words of wisdom to half an hour. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really about it from us. There will be one poll for you to answer, which is self-explanatory. You'll just be asked for your preferred choice. And then finally, before I hand over to Harriet, I just wanted to draw to your attention that the entries are open today for our 2021 This Can Happen award, which celebrates and recognise companies and individuals who have shown excellent in their approach to mental health in the workplace. All details are on our website, but you might want to have a look. Right, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our guest speaker today, Harriet Beveridge.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone. Really, really lovely to be here. So on to the next slide. We are going to cover, this is like an active session. So Susie, could you go on to the next slide? That if you have the opportunity to grab something to write on and write with, fantastic. But at the same time, if you are walking the dog, if you are homeschooling GCSE physics, you know, if you are washing up, completely understand. All right, so welcome. Quick introduction to me. Why am I involved in this? So on to the next slide. There are a number of things that I bring to this. I'm a keynote speaker, I'm a coach. I do have some qualifications in therapy, but I'm not a qualified therapist. All right, so please don't kind of take this as you know, therapeutic support. I'm probably best known for writing the book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? So I'll be drawing on some strategies from that book. And I also wanted to mention that I'm a stand-up comic. So I believe, rightly or wrongly, that humour sometimes can be the oven gloves that we need to handle the hot topics. So today, if I'm talking lightly about things, my intention is not to be glib, my intention is not to gloss over things, it's to help. All right, so that's where I'm coming from. That's the reason for using humour. And if you want to find out any more or access resources from me, then you can go to harrietbeveridge.com. Okay, so in terms of what we're going to cover, first thing, we're going to check in and see how you are doing. So rather like in a physical workout, if you went to the gym, I'd probably ask you first off, you know, where any aches and pains or anything we need to be aware of, or what you want to achieve. And then we do some physical workouts where we'd kind of isolate different areas of the body and we'd work on kind of complementary groups of muscles. We're going to do exactly the same thing within this half an hour. So we've got 4 different workouts, all of them different approaches for building your mental health and your well-being. So first off, the check-in, let's just see how you are doing. And you know, there's all kinds of research out there around different emotions. I quite like Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions, for example. But if I was to really simplify it, how are you feeling right now? And I put up some examples. Perhaps you're feeling kind of happy or content or positive. Perhaps you're feeling sad. Perhaps you're in a place of loss or you know, grieving or sadness. Perhaps fear is the overriding feeling, and that could be, you know, strong fear, or it could be sort of slight agitation. Perhaps it's anticipation, kind of looking forward, or perhaps boredom, just kind of flatness. So there's a gazillion different feelings we could be feeling, but if I was to limit it and simplify it to just those 5, how would you sum yourself up right now? Okay, and Susie's going to run a poll so that if you could actually click on the one that if you had to choose one of them, which for you sums things up best right now, that would be good to see. So the responses are just coming in. We're just going to give people a few seconds to fill that in. And as you're filling it in, just know that there are around about 1,000 of you dialed in to this webinar right now. So you might feel like you're just one person logging in your feelings onto a poll, but just, you know, it's quite powerful to realize that we're all connected by the same connection. We're all into the same thing right now. So Susie, tell me when you've got the answers to this.
It's just a I know we haven't got much time, so I'm just going to close it now and publish the results, Harriet. There you go. Can you see those? They should be. Oh, sorry, it's just buffering slightly. But there you go.
Yeah, so hopefully I can see them. Hopefully, if you are, so I'll read them out for those who can't see them. We've got the kind of top one that's coming out is anticipation, that kind of like, which is probably like, oh, I wonder what this workout's going to be about, and I wonder what's going to go on here. The next one we've got is boredom. And gosh, it's been a long old January, and that's coming up a lot with the clients and organisations I work with. This feeling of flatness is like it's a long time right now. We've got 22% of people saying happy, content. We've got 20% of people saying fear, and I think in the wardrobe of emotions, that's my little black dress that I would tend to go to as my default setting. So I hear you there. And then we've got 18% who put down sadness. So as I say, if you are feeling kind of alone in that space right now, take comfort from the fact that on this call, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of other people who are in the same space as you. And that can kind of help us feel a little less alone. And also to remind you that in terms of if you're feeling in crisis right now, please, 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 there are so many organisations and places you can go for support. For example, on the next slide, we've got in the UK, I'm in the UK, we've got Mental Health UK, which is a This Can Happen partner charity. And the Samaritans operate across many, many countries in the globe, offering non-judgmental befriending. They kind of can sit with you whatever you're going through. And then also in the US, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is a great resource. So all of those have got websites, they've got phone lines. So please, if you're feeling in crisis right now, I thoroughly recommend. In the same way that if we were feeling kind of physically unwell, you know, most people wouldn't hesitate to go and get the support that they need. And hopefully, as a society, we're getting better at it being more kind of obvious and immediate to go and get the support that we need for our mental well-being. Okay, so we've checked in. So let's go into the workouts. So the first workout that we're going to do is a bit of a warm-up. And if you want to find out more about this type of approach, I thoroughly recommend Tara Brach and her work on RAIN, is the acronym she uses. So on to the next slide, please. If you imagine that feeling that you said you were feeling right now, and there's something about just noticing what's true for us right now, what emotion is coming up for us, and kind of being with it. Quite often the temptation when it's an unpleasant emotion is to kind of push it down, and rather like pushing a beach ball underwater, that can take an awful lot of effort, and it can also kind of just ping back up in our face. Or if we're feeling an emotion that we feel more as a more positive emotion, you know, sometimes we just kind of don't take notice of it and we kind of rattle on into the future rather than giving it attention. So whatever emotion you put down, just notice what it is, and then notice where it is in your body. So this is about getting out of our head and into our body and just feeling where it is physically. So maybe it's in a particular place in your body. Perhaps there's a tightness somewhere or a sensation in a certain part of your body. So just scan through from your face. Often our jaw holds a lot of tension, for example, and our shoulders. Sometimes around the tummy area, you can feel certain sensations. So if there's a tightness or a feeling of weight, or a sensation of movement, or sometimes people get a sense of a colour or a sound. So whatever it is, just notice what's happening right now. And then we're going to send it some warmth. Now, perhaps it feels too cheesy to say we're going to send it some love or some affection or some compassion. And if that feels too cheesy, that's fine. Just imagine rather like you might put an ice pack or a warm pack when you've got a kind of muscle that needs attention. So in the same way, we can just send a feeling of warmth, a feeling of light to wherever that place is. And just notice what's useful. Some people find that physically actually kind of, sort of giving it a bit of warmth as well can be useful. So say rather than kind of pushing away or skipping forward, just that process of noticing, recognizing, allowing, and giving it some warmth, kind of nurturing it, is a way to kind of warm ourselves up before we do any of the other workouts that we're going to do in this session. And notice if anything's shifted. We're not consciously trying to fix anything in this warm up, but sometimes we start to feel a little bit looser or a little bit more flexible mentally as we give it that warmth and that kind of self-compassion. Okay. So having done a gentle warm up, we're going to move on to the next workout. And this one I've called Mind Your Language. I am fascinated by language. My mother was an English teacher, and we used to have a dictionary in the car when I was a child to while away the boring times at traffic lights. And if you learn a different language, it's fascinating when you hit a word that doesn't have a translation. I love in German, there's the word gemütlich, which means kind of homely and cozy, but we don't really have a word for it in the English language. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to investigate the language that we are using in our heads right now. Now, if you've got a pen and paper, this is the time to grab it. Or if you're at a keyboard, you can type this down. If you haven't, doesn't matter, all right? But what I'm going to ask you to do, onto the next slide, is I'm just going to ask you to splurge for 1 minute whatever's going on inside your head and just notice what you're saying to yourself. Now, when we did the workout a couple of weeks ago, some people really liked it that I kept talking you through this, and some people wanted a bit of silence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 1 minute timer on the slides for those of you who can see it, or if you're just dialed in, you might want to put a timer on for 1 minute. So if you don't want to listen to me burble, then just give yourself a minute's silence. But if you're happy to let me talk you through this, listen on. So are you ready? So if you could start the timer, Susie. So just notice all the things that are going on in your head. What are you telling yourself? What are the kind of nagging, oh, you shouldn't do this or you should do that? What's the kind of irritations or frustrations? What are the fears? What are the worries? What are the kind of things you're beating yourself up about? That things you didn't get done last week, the bit on your to-do list that you didn't get through. So just spend some time listening to whatever it is that your brain is kind of whittering on about, and so that you've got a bit of a kind of transcript almost of what it's saying. Now, as I'm looking at the slide, I am wondering if our beautiful timer has got stuck, because it looks like that bar has got stuck.
It started and then it just stopped. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm going to just do a little cheeky timer of a few seconds left. That could have been interesting. I could have been going on for hours at a time. So let's have a few more seconds on this. So just notice what the kind of, I don't know about you, I often have a drill sergeant in my head who's kind of going, come on, better, more, do it differently. Why didn't you do that? Why did you mess that up? I can't believe you didn't get your to-do list done. It's all that kind of stuff that we want to get down. Okay, so I make it the last, let's go to 10 more seconds on that. So write down whatever is coming to mind. Okay, let's call it a day. So if you could advance the slide, then hopefully, oh, see, it started again now. I'm going to set a timer for the next one. Okay, so if you could, we're going to look for, there's lots of different words that we could look for. The language that we use can have quite an interesting impact on our thought patterns and then how we feel. So for today's workout, we're just going to look at a couple of patterns. And the ones I'd like you to look out for is where you've said to yourself, oh, I should or I shouldn't. I ought or I ought not to. I must or I must not, or I have to. And we're going to play around with different language just to see what the impact is and whether it has an impact on our well-being and our mental health and our mood. So I'm giving you some examples of things you might want to switch to. So if you could show those, please, Susie. And some suggestions are I could, or I'm choosing to, or I will, or I get to. So I'll give you an example. My friend yesterday, I was talking to her and she said, oh, I shouldn't let the kids watch so much screen time right now, but I'm working from home and I can't see what else to do. So rather than I shouldn't let the kids watch so much screen, it could be something like, well, I could limit the time that they are allowed to be on screens, or I'm going to choose to let this go during lockdown, or I will have a conversation with them about screen times. And notice all of the words in the right-hand column have got the word I in them, because this is around how can we kind of take back control, have we got some agency about this. Or another example might be, I should get a grip. Yeah. Now to say I could get a grip is probably feels unachievable. That seems a bridge too far. But are there other things I could do? I could reach out to friends. I could get some advice, some support. I could go outside and get some fresh air and sunlight. So there are things I can do to help me feel better. Or the I have to, I have to do the laundry, I have to do the washing up. Perhaps it's I'm choosing to do the washing up, or I get to. Lucky old me that I have enough plates and bowls and knives and forks that I get to do the washing up. So I'm going to give you a minute again. Have a play with the stuff that you have put down and see if you can get some traction on sort of thinking about things in a slightly different way by changing your language. So this time I'm going to put a timer on my phone in case our blue friend doesn't work again this time. So you've got a minute. There hopefully will be a blue timer, but who knows? It's a roller coaster ride. And maybe one of those words, those phrasings is going to work for you. Or maybe you've actually got a choice. I could do that thing on my to-do list that I didn't do yesterday. I'm choosing not to do that thing on my to-do list. I'm going to let it go. I will do that thing on my to-do list, but I'm not going to do it till tomorrow. I get to do that thing on my to-do list. Lucky old me that I've actually got too much, I've got all these things that I could be doing. So just notice what you've got on your list and see which phrase changes really give you some traction. So we've got the dying seconds left, I've got 10 seconds left.
It worked.
It worked. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so there's loads more that we could do on language. I love this as a tool for managing our mental well-being, and we all have patterns. So those of you familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy and the work on kind of patterns of language, I find deeply fascinating. One there that really gets traction for me is the I get to. It's a quick way of seeing the upside of something that initially looks like a chore or a downside. Okay, moving on to the next workout. Right, unleash your dopamine. There is so much research that one of the quickest ways to lift our mood is exercise. And yet we put up so many barriers. You know, I need to put my gym shoes on, I need to get out of the door, I haven't got the right equipment. And it seems the hardest thing about exercise is actually getting started. Once we start, it's fine. Research consistently shows when we've been for a walk, we pretty much always feel better, but we always underestimate how good we will feel after. So for this, literally, I'm going to do a very quick 1-minute workout. And let me just change my camera. So for those of you dialed in, if you possibly can, if you could just stand up and put your hands above your head so that you're nicely stretched up and you can feel that stretch going all the way through your spine. I'm flashing my belly button unashamedly at the people who are on the video. And then if you could lean forward, so keep your knees nice and soft, don't lock out your knees, but if you hinge from your hips and you keep your head facing forward and your back stretch, hopefully you get a nice stretch through your bum, through the backs of your legs, through your back. And you can also take your arms behind your shoulders and pull them together. So if you've got your hands clasped, your arms out straight and your shoulders together, then for those of us who have been sitting down for most of the time, it makes a really good stretch. And then finally, just a really quick shoulders rotating backwards, just round your ears and down. So your shoulders are rolling backwards and then roll them forwards. And if you've got enough space, you can put your hands out to the side so that you roll your hands as if you were putting your hands around a little tennis ball. You could make them bigger into a beach ball and then back into a tennis ball, into a beach ball, shake it off, sit down again. Super quick, that was like 1 minute. So for those of us who think I haven't got the exercise time, I haven't got the equipment, it can be very, very easy to do. Okay, on to the next workout. So this last workout is all around paying it forwards. So let me explain. On to the next slide. So if you look at compassion focused therapy, they talk about 3 systems that we run. The first system is the fear system. So this is where hormones like cortisol or adrenaline kind of flood our system. This is the flight or fight bit of our brain. Really, really important system. If we were never scared of stuff, then we'd never react to danger. To be fearless sounds pretty exciting and kind of nice and relaxing, but it would put us into a whole heap of danger. So a lot of us spend a lot of our time in that fear system because sadly the brain is not very good at knowing the difference between a real physical threat and more of a psychological threat. So the same fear system is triggered by a nasty email coming in as it would by someone attacking us with a knife. It's the same system, right? The next system in our brains and bodies is the reward system. This is the bit that craves achievement and progress. And it's great, right? It's you get this dopamine hit. So anyone who's passed an exam or got a certificate or run a race and you feel that sense of achievement, it's the reward system at play. But the downside is it's also the system that keeps us going. Enough is not enough. More. Kind of get that sugary biscuit. Check your phone for the next Facebook update. And then the last system is the affiliative system, which is around connection with other people. So I guess the downside of this system is when we become people pleasers and we put other people first and forget about ourselves. But the power of this system is hormones like oxytocin, where if you've ever felt safe and connected and part of a community and part of a kind of team that's bigger than yourself, that's the affiliative system at play. And there's I get very frustrated when people talk about evolution in terms of the survival of the fittest, and it's a fight, when there's a lot of research suggesting that it's the survival of the most affiliative. As a species, we have to look after our young until they're pretty old, so it's that desire to nurture and to operate as a group which has kind of got us through. So depending on which system we are in, it's a bit like wearing coloured glasses. But if you're in the fear system, everything looks red, for example. If we're in the reward system, everything looks blue. If we're in the affiliative system, everything looks green. So if we're stuck in one system, then one way to kind of transition out of it is to kind of put another pair of spectacles on. And the one we're going to use today is the green system. So hopefully those of you can see the slides. I'm going to try some snazzy graphics here. Let's see if they work. So the three systems can be layered on top of each other, and we're going to use the green affiliative system. Okay, how are we going to do this? So here is my challenge to you. In the next minute, I have a bingo card of suggestions of things that you can do to connect with other people, to remind yourself that you're part of a team, you're part of humankind, you're part of the world. So here's some suggestions. So on the next slide, please, Susie. These might all be relevant. None of them might be relevant, but hopefully they'll get you thinking there. They'll kind of motivate some ideas. Could you send someone an ebook just as like, hey, I think this is really interesting reading. This might cheer you up, or this is good brain food. Could you send them a cheery meme? Now, I haven't seen my parents face to face for a year now. We've survived on WhatsApp comedy memes. There's a great one of a Monopoly board going around at the moment, which rather than the addresses on the normal Monopoly board has got sitting room, kitchen, loo. Do a household chore. If you're living with a group of other people, could you do something as a thank you, take the weight off someone else? Could you chat to a neighbour? Where I'm living right now, it's snowing, so we've got quite a few vulnerable people really stuck indoors at the moment, and just texting or talking to them over the garden wall to see if they're okay. Could you make a donation to something that's bigger than you, to some charity or some movement that you care passionately about, to connect yourself with other people? Could you volunteer your time? Could you simply say thank you? Thank you to a colleague or a friend or someone that you admire for things that they've done for you? Could you give to a food bank or give to people who in need? Could you litter pick? Could you just simply smile at a passerby? I'm lucky enough, I've got into the habit of going for a quick walk every morning, and that's my mission, is to smile to as many people as I can. Could you take on someone's workload just as a quick thank you? Could you send a postcard? So literally in the next minute, if you could, commit to what's the one, the two, the three, perhaps out of those suggestions that you can go and do immediately. It just requires sending a text. It just requires going onto an online store and sending a present, etc. So you can screenshot that as an example if you are on the slides. If you're listening into this, then you'll get the video recording, or hopefully you can remember some of those examples that I have given you. Okay, so that is the end of our half-an-hour workout. For further support, if you go to thiscanhappen.com/resources, there's a whole bag of stuff there. And there's also the link to the Mental Health UK website, to the names in North America, to the Samaritans that we talked about earlier. Over to you, Susie. But from me, I hope that that's refreshed your mental well-being, and I hope to see you on the next workout. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Harriet. That's been absolutely fantastic, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. As I say, the numbers have been really overwhelming, and we're just so delighted that so many of you want to be involved. So if there were any problems, or if you know anyone who had to phone in, just to say again, at the risk of boring us all, but you will receive a copy of this webinar by email as you've experienced it today. The next webinar, the next mental health workout is on Monday, the 1st of February at 2 o'clock. Monday, the 1st of February at 2 o'clock. And then lastly, just to say, go and look on our website, thiscanhappenglobal.com, to look at our awards. When I finish this webinar in a second, a really brief evaluation form should pop up. It's really helpful to us if you wouldn't mind just putting it in so we can get your feedback. And that's it. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and week. I'm now going to end the webinar. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.